This Dicebreaker video is sponsored by Wild Bills. Ditch the manufactured flavors. Your taste buds deserve better. Treat yourself to Wild Bill's premium handcrafted soda pop. Mouth-watering beverages that allow you to escape to the most interesting places imaginable. Cheers to refusing the drink from the mainstream. Cheers to kick-ass canned. Cheers to being veteran-owned and operated. At Wild Bills, flavor isn't everything. It's the only thing. Use discount code CHEERS15 for 15% off your first order.
Hello and welcome back to Dicebreaker, where today we played Iron Forest.
Did we play it today, Matt? Did we?
Well, to pull back the curtain, Alex Meehan, we in fact played Iron Forest at this year's Essen Spiel out in Germany. We are obviously no longer at Essen Spiel, we're back in our homes. But we are here to talk about our time with Iron Forest, which is the new game from the designer of Ice Cool. So I think some folks may be familiar with Ice Cool, but for those who aren't and have just kind of stumbled onto this video and wondering what's going on, Ice Cool is a game that came out in 2016. The creator is Brian Gomez. It is a dexterity game, so it's a game in which you flick stuff and it slides around and it flies around and often it goes tumbling off of the table.
There's penguins. Penguins are
involved. It is penguins, so
Fish.
yeah, as the name suggests, it is set in a very frozen school. Bit of a play on words there, ice school.
I didn't realise it was a school. I thought they were just penguins.
So the penguins are, most of the penguins are just naughty students who are trying to gobble down fish. And then one player is the hall monitor who chases them. So in Ice Cool, it's made up of boxes that all fit together in the box. It's quite cool. And then you arrange them into various different maps. And the idea is you flick the penguins, they go through doorways. Above the doorways are fish in your respective player colours. And when you go through a doorway with a fish on it, you collect that fish. And you're trying to get, I think, 3 fish. There's a number of fish per player. Basically, you're trying to get all of your fish before the hall monitor catches you all, which is how they score points. And that's basically Ice Cool. It's very simple. It was kind of like a kid's dexterity game. It's pretty cool. Like, people... Now, I'll throw my hands up and admit, here at the top of this video, I'm not very good at Ice Cool. Because people who are good at Ice Cool don't just, like, flick penguins along through the doorways. They got into... Like, the really good players are able to, like, jump over walls and, like, curve around things.
Sick tricks!
It is a level of dexterity competence that I do not have.
Is it Ice Cool?
But I still think Ice Cool is a fun game.
Ice Cool World Championships. Are we going to train for it?
I don't believe there is a World Championships, but who knows, maybe this is our time to get into professional Ice Cool.
Matt Jarvis, I think you should compete in the World Championships for getting a cat off a desk. I think you'd be amazing at it. Yeah, you'd be incredible.
So there was an Ice Cool 2 as well, which I think was like 2018 or something. So either way, it's been a couple of years since there was an Ice Cool. But this is not Ice Cool. This is Iron Forest. So, what's new, Alex Meehan, in Iron Forest? Well, thank you for asking. I'll tell you for what.
No, wait. That sounded like you were asking me. I was like, okay, I'll tell you.
You know what? Yeah, you go for it. We've both played it. We both played it with Brian Gomez, in fact, who was showing us through very kindly. So yeah, what is Iron Forest, Alex Meehan?
Yeah, so Iron Forest apparently is set in the world of Ice Cool, which is surprising because the theme is very different from penguin students eating fish. In this game, from what we could gather, it's some sort of... I don't know whether it's post-apocalyptic, but a city was built and then it fused with the earth or something like that. And now it's like machine and nature as one. And there are 2 factions kind of fighting over land. There is the Iron Forest, which appear to be industrial, kind of an industrial faction. And then there's the animal clans, which are... They're machines that kind of look like animals or natural things. I'm not 100% sure whether they're piloted by animals or not. In fact, I cannot confirm whether these are mechs or just like machines with their own sentience. I don't know.
That's a good point. I also don't know, and I
Yeah.
don't know. You played the Animal Clans, but I don't remember there being a penguin robot.
No, there wasn't.
Robot?
There was a
It feels like
bird.
there should be a penguin robot.
There was a bird one, and it was my favourite because that was the one that looked most like an animal. The others were kind of vaguely animal shaped, and then I think your ones were more kind of like with saws and stuff, like Robot Wars style.
They were just kind of robots, to be honest.
Yeah.
They were pretty standard, like robot. I think they're technically meant to be like a defense system for the city that we're playing in.
Yeah.
But they just kind of look like, you think of kind of like rusty robots. They look like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. That's the rich lore behind this game. But in the game itself, it's kind of similar to Ice Cool in the sense that you are trying to like flick these little miniature things through gates and such. And on the bottom of the miniatures, there's like this round. They have rounded bottoms. So
they're like the they called. Oh, what were the like kids' toys that were like you couldn't push them over because they were just? Are they called teeter totters, something like that?
I'm not
but it's
sure.
Like that, right?
Yeah, I have some horrendous memory of a clown one. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, not something you want to think about. Yeah, they've got those kind of rounded bottoms, which means they don't sit still. They kind of teeter, which means that you can kind of do some wild things with the dexterity element of this game. And I think we both started off being quite cautious with the miniatures we were using, and then Gomez was like, no, you've got to, I think his exact words were, you've got to do more of a swish than a flick. And I was like, okay, Harry Potter reference. That was definitely deliberate on their part. But then once we kind of got an idea of how the balance of the miniatures and like what kind of pressure we'd have to give them, it was more like an issue of aiming. So I think there are different modes in the game, and the one we were playing was like an objective based one, similar to Ice Cool, where you have to shoot your miniatures through different gates. But different from Ice Cool is that there are multiple levels to the maps. So we were playing one which had like a board suspended above like a lower board, and there are holes in the upper board so that the pieces can fall down there, which I thought was pretty cool. And it like caught the eye as soon as you saw it. Like I think one of us spotted it, and that's why we knew that this game was there. And we thought, wow, this is really interesting. What's going on with this? It's very visually intriguing.
Yeah, it definitely. So yeah, like you say, it's. I think we were playing a prototype, to be clear. So any footage you see during this video is a prototype. It won't be final. But it was similar to Ice Cool in that the boards are modular, so they're made out of kind of like rectangular boxes. But it seems like, I was looking at it, I think all of the boxes have holes in, so any of them can be suspended.
Yeah.
And then the ones on the bottom floor have like a little layer that goes in to cover over holes. So you could, as you say, like you could flick around the top and then drop down a hole, which was how you got some of the objective
points
as well.
Yeah, yes.
So as well as going through gates kind of like horizontally, you could drop through vertically to collect things.
Yeah, and that was there were other modes I think that the designer mentioned, including one where you are like a PvP sort of situation where your faction is fighting directly against the other faction, almost like a kind of miniature game. It was an interesting kind of hybrid between the concepts of a miniature game where you have these different factions. We had some different abilities, and also we had these kind of miniatures that in one of the modes you're directly fighting against each other. In this mode, the objective wasn't to do that, but we could actually, I think you did multiple times, like hit one of my miniatures, which then damaged it. And then if your miniature gets damaged twice, then it's temporarily kind of out of play. So I was intrigued by this idea of different modes, because the one we played was very similar to Ice Cool, and obviously you're like the different setting and the kind of different levels thing sets it apart. But I think these other modes is something that's really going to help expand upon the existing gameplay system that Ice Cool kind of set up.
Yeah, I think Gomez said there were 7 different scenarios. So like you say, there's the objective one we played, there's like a PvP one. I think there was like a...
Where
I
you
might
collect
be misremembering, but I think there was a King of the Hill one kind of thing where you had to stay on the top level. So you want to push your opponents down the holes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it sounds like there's quite a lot of variety there. And when we were chatting with Gomez, he was saying, you know, this is designed very much as like an Ice Cool for older players. Like there's a bit more complexity to it. There's a lot more kind of variation in the different modes. There's obviously multiple levels. We had so instead of Ice Cool, which I think you only have 1 penguin each, we had teams of
4 different robots that and we had some abilities, like I think I had one. So the interesting thing, I don't know if this is the case in Ice Cool, Mr. Jarvis, but there's like a white box, and you have to kind of start from one of the edges of the lines, and if you get knocked out of like the box, then you can place yourself back on that line.
It's basically to just avoid the thing of you being so close
so,
to the wall,
yeah,
you
you're
can't even get your
stuck.
finger down. It's just like a little bit of leeway.
Yeah, and one of my abilities was like I could move one of my machines anywhere on the line in the room it was in, which was really useful, because sometimes even when I was directly in front of a gate, I would screw it up somehow. There were a lot of people watching as well. I think it's like a testament to the game in the sense that visually, it's one of those classic dexterity games where you don't even really need to know the rules to kind of have an idea of how it works, which I really like, and I think it's like a huge advantage of the genre of dexterity games. So there were people watching us play, and obviously a lot of people there spoke German as well, but this game kind of transcended those barriers. So people were like watching us, and then when we, you know, scored a really impressive shot, there were like some cheers, or when like we missed something, it was like that. Or I think it's one of those games that creates that shared experience, and it's very hard not to be invested in what's happening.
And we haven't mentioned one of the big additions. So obviously you drop down the holes to get back down from the top, but instead of choosing to flick one of your robots, which you activate, so you activate your robots by drawing cards from a deck. So it's slightly randomized. There is the chance you can activate a robot twice in the same turn, and when you damage an opponent's robot, you get kind of like an extra turn. So I got a token when I damaged yours that let me activate. Yeah, that's when you knock.
That's when you knock an opponent's robot out of play. You get one of those tokens. Yeah.
But to get back to the top level, there is a straight up a launcher
that
you load your robot into, and it's kind of, I think, again, it was a prototype, so maybe it'll change in the final release. But it was like a big plastic tube with just a plunger on the bottom, like a old the thing you hit with a hammer at like the fairground.
Yeah.
And you managed to get some good shots in, because you shot back up to the top with a couple of your robots.
So obviously to get to the holes in the upper tier, I think those were some of my last points I had to get, and I put one of my robots in the launcher. And initially, just like with, you know, the standard dexterity stuff, I was quite cautious with it, because I was like, because earlier I'd watched this person absolutely yeet like one of their robots out into like the show floor. So I was worried that too much pressure would cause it to kind of just fly off. But I had to be a little bit more forceful with it. But no, one of the shots I managed to shoot it just directly into one of the holes. It was great.
I think like it just adds like literally another level to it, because like you say, it's just fun to watch. It was
really
fun to watch you fire, and like even though we were against each other, when you landed a shot and it did kind of like forward flips in the air. It was just like, oh yeah, like
Yeah,
you nailed
that's
it.
cool.
Like, you landed that. Like
It's like it's got some of the strategy of, a kind of. I know it's not a direct comparison, but I'm going to keep saying it's got some of the strategy of like a miniatures game in the sense that you're moving these different pieces on this board and you're trying to gain objectives and stuff like that. But it's obviously a lot more accessible, and it's just a lot more. It definitely likes to have fun. Like it encourages the player to, like obviously think carefully about the shots you're making and. Try and use their skill, but also it's just good fun. So I was impressed. I was definitely one I was thinking about afterwards, and I'm intrigued to learn more when the Kickstarter hits in February, I believe.
Yeah, February 8th I think is the date they gave, 2022. But yeah, like you, I'd played a little bit of Ice Core here and there, but I'd never really played loads of it. But this seemed like more of a game that I would be into. I think like the different objectives and just the extra level and things like that. It like really added a lot where I could feel like, oh, this is a game that I would get out.
Yeah, I
friends,
feel like,
and like you say, it's very spectator sporty.
Yeah, I feel like this is definitely a game that I would want to play myself as well. Like, yeah, it would be something that I would want to show other people who had not heard of it or seen it before. Because I'd be like, look how cool this is, and you pick it up quite quickly. Obviously, the more you play it, I imagine the better you get. But initially, it's very, I know exactly kind of what I need to do. But it's got enough there that it's, it's more, it's got more depth than Ice Cool. So, yeah, I think they're definitely aiming for the right kind of market, as it were. I think this is something that older players would want to again get that same exciting experience of the dexterity game, but there's more there.
Yeah, and I think the changes from Ice Cool also make it so this isn't just like, oh, it's like got robots instead of penguins. Ice Cool, it's all the players kind of racing around trying to get things and one person chasing them. This, as far as the mode we played, was kind of one-on-one. I think you can play in teams as well, because obviously you've got multiple robots on each team.
Up to 8 players,
I think. Like you say, there's abilities, there's different objectives, there's multiple levels. So it just feels like the kind of game where it would maybe be worth having like Ice Cool and Iron Forest in your collection if you were after two kind of different experiences. So yeah, I like you, I kind of walked away really impressed, even with it being a prototype. It was just like, I could play that all night.
Yeah,
like, that was a really fun game.
I could have kept playing that, even the same scenario. I could have kept playing that same scenario because it was just really good fun.
Excellent. But yeah, that is Iron Forest, which not today, but a day we played at Essen Spiel 2021. And if you'd like more coverage from Essen Spiel 2021, you can find it on our website, which is dicebreaker.com. You can find it here on this very YouTube channel you're already watching, which is youtube.com/dicebreaker. Or you can, follow us on Twitter @joindicebreaker for more pictures and reporting from this year's convention. But for now, I've been Matt Jarvis. Thank you for joining me, Alex Meehan, to talk about Iron Forest. As we say, it's they plan a Kickstarter for February 8th, 2022. So if you're interested, you can go and follow the publisher is Brain Games, the designer is Brian Gomez. So go and check that out. In the meantime, if you're interested in Ice Cool, it's pretty much available everywhere. It's still a great game. So if you want to get a small taste of what's coming up, you can go and check that out as well. But until then, thank you very much for watching and have a lovely day. Bye-bye.
Bye.